All right, let's talk player pool for Fanduel this weekend. I did go tight on this, but we're going to talk stacks at the end. These are mainly just guys that we're interested in building lineups with. Um, I've been building DK teams this morning, trying to get those knocked out. That is a interesting slate. I also just took a look at a night slate finally for Saturday, which typically I don't take a look at until Saturday morning, but I consistently get asked questions about it. Obviously, any slate that includes Utah State, UNLV, you're going to want a lot of that. That would have been the underrated game of the week this week. I like Utah State in that game for odd reasons. I think it could either be a UNLV blowout or Calandria plays whoopsie daisy king. So if you watch the early portion of this, you got to bet there. I think there's two ways to go about it. You either alt line UNLV or take Utah State money line. That would be my two options. I'd take them both on plus money sides there. So back on the FanDuel train. Core plays on FanDuel this week. Number one, Trinidad Chambliss for Ole Miss. The rushing upside is too great. The passing has been good enough. We saw Cutter Boley be able to put up numbers on this Florida defense. Does Lane Kiffin have a point to prove facing this Florida team? Maybe he's trying to get more money. I think he comes out and just absolutely tries to destroy the Gators this weekend. And given that Florida's team has pretty much quit and decided that they were going to transfer, most of them, luckily for them, had been injured for certain games earlier in the season, which has allowed them to preserve red shirts. I said that's why they didn't want to fire Billy Napier earlier this season, even though they would have after that South Florida game. But they pretty much didn't want to for the simple fact that everybody would have quit at that point and transferred. They delayed the inevitable, but there was still some stragglers that were going to do that. So the floor here is immaculate. The ceiling is huge. The one risk is that Kewan Lacey scores all the touchdowns and Chambliss doesn't get his. But given it's Florida, I think we see an offensive onslaught here. 34 points seems likely. That's 5 touchdowns. We get 5 touchdowns. I think late 3 go through Chambliss minimum, possibly 2 through Lacey, but I think you got upside for 4 or 5 from Chambliss himself, which makes him a core play in this situation. Core play number 2. You're probably going to call me crazy. I'll be honest. This feels very similar to Carson Beck from 2 weeks ago, but we get more mobility. I'm going Arch. I could be wrong. This just feels like a good spot for Arch. I don't think this is a Georgia defense of old. Arch has thrown for 303 each of the last 2 weeks. I don't know for certain that Vandy is a worse defense, that much worse of a defense than Georgia. The Georgia front four is not the Georgia front four of old. And I could argue that the Georgia front four is only like the guys that transferred out are playing better than the actual guys that stayed. They might have made some wrong decisions here on that front four for Georgia. The offensive line for Texas is not blocking the run particularly great. So I don't know that the run game's necessarily going to be there for Texas from a Wisner-Baxter standpoint. I think 9K is too cheap for Arch in this spot. I think he's got upside. I think he's got floor. Like I mentioned the other day, I discount the Ohio State game because, Ohio State's defense probably the best one in the country. Outside of that, Oklahoma's one of the better defenses in the country. I'd argue it's better than Georgia's. So dropping a 14 and a 13 is nothing to sneeze at. The Kentucky game's absolutely abysmal. Don't get me wrong. But if we just say it's a bad day, other than that, it's been 20 plus. So I think Arch is a play and a guy that I'm going to plant a flag on this week. I just have a feeling. So I'm planting my flag there. Other guys that are in my pool, the other two that I feel the most confident about, I had a 4-man pool this week just because we'll go over more in stacks wise. But Marcel Reed, I like him on DK. I'm going to like him on Fanduel. He's got rushing upside. I like the matchup with South Carolina. I don't think South Carolina's defense is anything good. So I'm going to go towards Reed and play him. I think the ceiling's there. And he's got good stack partners. So he's going to be in play in my pool. And then Sayin, very similarly. Granted, I got burned to hell and back last week because of Carnell Tate and his, I will call it, soft suspension, because there ain't no way in hell he was hurt. If he was hurt and he got tight in warmups, he's not in uniform. He's in uniform. They made him stand on that sideline and watch that game. So I don't see that having been the case. He wouldn't have been, quote unquote, available if they said he was just tight. So they would have shut him down and immediately just said, just throw sweats on, you're good. So that was a suspension for missing a class per sources that I have, aka sources where I also broke the Decorian Moore news first to report there. So got some sources. Saying though, played fine. Touchdowns didn't go his way. That's why he only had 14. I'll go back to the well some here. They're going to blow UCLA out of the water. I'll play Jeremiah. I'll play Sayin. I did take some Jeremiah 25 and 30 to 1 Heisman odds earlier this week. So that's the main set of the pool. I did make a tight pool there. I'll go over more guys in stacks as far as things that I'm interested in there. But you get the gist. That's kind of the core four, mainly the core two, though, of Manning and Chambliss that I feel best about there. I'm going to play a lot of Manning. I'll put it that way, and I'll pair him with a lot at the top of the board here. Running back wise, it's a pretty simple week, actually, at running back for me. I'm going to talk about some extra guys, but for the most part, every team on both sites is where injury could really bite me in the rump. Jordan Marshall is going to be my starting point on virtually every roster. He's going to get 20-plus carries. He's going to get 100 yards. He's going to score at minimum 1 touchdown. No Justice Haynes. They have a 3-star freshman and a walk-on that are backing him up. So they're not getting touches. So this is the Marshall show. If he gets hurt, I'm going to lose this week. That's just where we're at. If he doesn't get hurt, he's going to get me 20-plus. So if he gets me 20-plus, I'm going to win. I'm going to have a virtual starting point. He should be your highest owned player on both sites. I have yet to build a team without Jordan Marshall, and I doubt that I end up doing it. Unless I really need some salary to get some of these higher end doubles on FanDuel specifically. But I think every team should start with Jordan Marshall, and he's just a free square. So play him and play him a lot. Second guy I'm going to play is going to get a good amount of volume, and he's going to be a core play. There's going to be my lineups are going to start with these two for the most part, and I'm going to build from there unless I have to change something. Kamari Moulton hasn't been great, but at 7,300, I think I'm going to get 15 to 20 touches pretty consistently in this spot. USC, not a great defense. I think USC handles this game, but there is a good amount of rain in the forecast in this one. which is kind of changing my tune a little bit on Makai Lemon and the USC pass game here. So if this thing can turn into a little bit of a slop fest, I love the fact that Moulton's going to get carries. We just saw Komafale from Northwestern run for, what did he run for? Because he should be on this slate. Northwestern, yeah, right here. Caleb Komalafe, excuse me. He ran for 118 and 1 with 5 catches in that game. I don't see the 5 catches coming, but I think we could get 100 yards and a touchdown out of Kamari Moulton. So if Moulton gets me 100 and a touch, that's 16 points. He gives me 16 points at 7,300. I'm going to be extremely happy. So I'm going to pair Marshall with Moulton a whole heck of a lot. And that's going to be my favorite pairing. I'm going to have a lot of that. And then I'm going to figure it out afterward. Rest of that is in the pool. I mentioned Lacey. I'm taking a fade stance on Love this week on both sites. Is it scary? Yes. But given the price and given the matchup, I'm going to lean towards fading Love. I'd rather play the pass game. Hint, hint. But Keywan Lacey, like I mentioned, could easily score 3 touchdowns in this spot, and that's the only way that Trinidad Chambliss fails. If he gets you mid-20s, it's perfectly acceptable. I don't mind going here if I have the extra salary. I don't know that I will end up with extra salary, but I would prefer Marshall to him. But he's the second best option at the running back position, no doubt about it. If I'm paying up anymore to pair with Marshall, it's with Lacey. It's not a question in my mind. Rest of the players down here. I don't mind Jacoby Williams. I don't love this. Same thing like Mike Washington. I have minimal interest here. LSU has struggled a little bit stopping the run. Washington's played pretty good. I just don't know that there's a discernible difference between Moulton and Washington for the most part. Jacoby Williams, very similar story. Him splitting work with Dickey is a concern, so I might get here, but I'd keep him in the pool. If I wanted to get 80, if I had an extra 1,300, then maybe I'd think about it. Reuben Owens, I think you have to keep in the pool because of the results. I'm still just scared crapless to play him because of what happened in this Missouri game. It was going really bad until the fourth quarter. And there was a lot of other backs, Morrow, EJ Smith, getting touches in that first quarter. So I have concerns about Reuben Owens this week. I do have a little bit of exposure that I built in on DK. I think I'm going to end up fading him, but we need to talk about it. So I'm going to talk about that. I don't disagree with you if you wanted to play him because he has the upside and because he's shown it consistently. But I'm personally afraid of it, and I probably stay away from Reuben Owens in this spot. I think that the results last week are a tad deceiving, personally. Punt play options. I mean, I would much rather play Moulton than Shamar Brown or Nate Frazier, personally. Punt plays. I'm going to include Harlem Berry here. I didn't originally have him, but he's been coming on pretty strong with 50+ each of the last 3 weeks. Arkansas's run defense is just absolutely terrible. I like what I've seen out of Harlem Berry. Maybe this is a spot they turn more to him. And so I am interested in Berry here. No doubt about it. Actually, I have one more thing we need to talk about, and I'll finish this up. Apologize for going back and forth. Okay, here's the deal. I did get a word this morning. Yep. So this was from yesterday, but I did get word. Somebody sent it to me that Nussmeier might have retweaked his oblique. If Nussmeier was out, or if I got word, I'll dive into the LSU boards since that's local to me. I'll bother to look. If Van Buren was going to start and Nussmeier was out, I would have a ton of interest in Van Buren. He would be my number one quarterback. I'm a big Van Buren believer. He's mobile. He can throw. I really do like Van Buren, especially facing Arkansas. He'd be my number one play on the slate. If Nussmeier's still in, I'm out. I'm just not even going to touch that situation. I might take some shots on Harlem Berry, but that's about it. But yeah, we needed to talk about that because I did get that yesterday. I got some info on that, but we'll see. I'm hoping Van Buren gets to start, but I do think they want to preserve his red shirt. So it's really touch and go. I'm pretty certain he still has his red shirt available to him. Yeah, he's only played 3 games. So maybe they try to play that in there because there's some talk of like Auburn not playing Ashton Daniels to preserve his red shirt. Granted, if I'm the new coach at Auburn, I don't want Ashton Daniels as my quarterback. So it's 2 ways to look at it. All right. There's some credence that you could play Gerard Pringle. He scored in every game he played in. But if I'm punting, I think Nakari Rogers is a legit punt play at 6,200. Reason being, Baylor sucks stopping the run. And Rogers gets touches in the red zone. So this is a very much so a Frank Peasant situation from Memphis, where he gets 8 carries and 3 touchdowns on 20 yards. I think it's legitimately possible you get a 20-point game or at least a 15-point game out of Nakari Rogers in a game where they're probably going to live in the red zone against Baylor. So I think Rogers is live for 2 touchdowns. No doubt in my mind he's live for 2 touchdowns, especially in the red zone. So I think taking shots on Rogers is viable in this spot. Very much so at 6,200. If I was punting, I like that. The other punt play is a deep, deep cut. And you're going to have to hold your breath and hold your nose. Wisconsin's not going to do anything to Indiana. They're going to blow them out. So there's been there's been a bunch of instances where Indiana blew teams out. Specifically 5 in this case. And in 3 of them, Kobe Martin had very good stat lines for this 5,700. Now against UCLA and Michigan State, not very good. But I would say there's a 50-50 chance that Kobe Martin could break the slate. So if I'm going to punt, full-blown punt, and I do not have 6,200 to get into Nakari Rogers, because Nakari Rogers is not going to get game scripted out of this thing. If I do not have 6,200, I'm going Kobe Martin because I know that he can score and score late. Now, Morrow got touches early last week, but I just don't trust that situation. If I'm going to go the punt route, it's Kobe Martin, it's Nakari Rogers. That's where I would be. All right, wide receivers. You know I'm going to fade Jeremiah Love, but I don't fade Jeremiah Smith. I think the Heisman is on. I think he needs some big games, 20-plus points, not out of the realm of possibility. He can dominate every other wide receiver in this slate. So I'm going to have him, no doubt about it. I'm going to switch my core play. Originally, it was going to be Jeremy Bernard. I'm a big Jeremy Bernard fan. He's in my pool, but I'm not going to make him the core play. Give me Malachi Toney as my core play. So I just switched it on the fly because I'm starting to buy into this Toney matchup. I do love this matchup for Malachi Toney. I think you're going to see stacks play out for Miami. NC State has struggled on the back end. They're decent against the run. Not great, but decent enough that it makes it more playable, more palatable. But I do like Malachi Toney here. And if you look at slot wide receivers, Will Pauling, Kataris Hicks, and Jordan Allen, Jordan Allen plays for Georgia Tech, by the way. All of them had over 100 yards against NC State. I think we see a very good performance out of Malachi Tony in this spot, although he did not look as explosive as I expected against Syracuse or SMU. The work was there, though. And with CJ Daniels back, it could help him. So I'm interested there. Now, if I'm going to, I still like Mario Craver. Don't get it twisted. I still like Mario Craver a lot. If I'm going to tout my man Arch Manning, I'm buying in. I think everybody's too low. I'm 100% going to be active on Ryan Wingo. Wingo's showing signs of life, people. So I'm in. Give me Wingo. I really do like Wingo in this spot. I think doubles are fully in play, but Wingo is going to be a core play for me at 7,500. I think he's one of the best sub 8K options. He's definitely the best option in the 7K range. I like him a good bit. I'm going to be on him pretty heavily here, and I think it's a very good way to play this. Keep an eye on the Elijah Surratt news. That would open up Omar Cooper. I wouldn't mind Omar Cooper in that spot. I'm just going to prefer Jeremiah if I'm going to pay up. I think other guys in the pool, depending if weather turns in our favor, Lemon could be in your pool, but if the rain still holds up, I'm out there. Barcate, always in my pool. No doubt about it. I love the kid at 9,700. Don't hate Concepcion. Perfectly fine there. Don't love it. Don't hate it. I prefer Craver this week. It's just a personal opinion in that spot. Good. Plus, I get the discount to go down to Craver. I like him a good bit. I'm probably out on Zach Branch on Fanduel. DK, I like him a good bit. He's a fine bring back option if you want to play the bring back side of that. Josh Cameron's going to be my preferred option on the Baylor side. They're going to have to chuck it. I know he has scored in back-to-back weeks, but the volume is so good. I prefer him to Trig. I know the blow-up's there. It can be there. I'm in on Cameron personally. I think he can take shots on the Pitt kids, Williams and Kenny Johnson. That's dealer's choice, whichever way you want to go. Although I am going to kind of fade Mason Heinschel. I might have one or two teams of Heinschel stacked, but I can't get over those comments of we don't care about this game. So Narduzzi had a very honest moment there. So I'm a little scared of that. I will, however, play a good bit of Trell Harris. He's getting more volume, which I like, and he has upside. So I like the volume and the upside. Facing a Duke team that absolutely struggles with wide receivers, I'm going to be heavily invested in Trell Harris. I think he's the best wide receiver option for that team. So I'm going to play a good bit of that. All right. Malachi Fields, y'all know I'm going to be in. I just think the deep threat, the touchdown equity, he can pay off in one play. I'm in on that. Now we're getting to the cheap options. So if I'm going to go down here and punt, I will be punting with Terrence Carter is a tight end, but he gets a ton of volume for Texas Tech, facing a UCF team that is not particularly great. I like Terrence Carter a pretty good bit. UCF has struggled with Joe Royer and Michael Trigg and Tanner Koziel this season. Big 12 has some of the best tight end play in the country. I think that continues this week. Terrence Carter's a big part of that rotation, and he's not priced like it. He should be much higher priced in this spot. Other cheap options. So, all right. I have 3 more punt plays. I like Noah Rogers this week. I like him on DK a lot at 3,300. He's a great bring back for your Miami stuff. NC State's gonna have to chuck it. Rodgers is a big target for them. Um, with Justin Jolie banged up, he'll be back allegedly. Smothers is supposed to be back. That'll take some pressure off of Rodgers. It's dealer's choice. This is all gut feeling. I think Rodgers is the most talented guy in the room. So I will buy in for some shots of Rodgers at 5,700. Just like I'm going to buy in with doubles, I'll take some DeAndre Moore. The floor is a little better. I don't know what the ceiling is here, but in this spot where they're probably going to have to chuck it a good bit, I like doubling with Moore and Wingo paired with Arch. Bentley is not the worst punt play. I probably prefer Moore a little bit, but Bentley's not a bad punt play as well. If you need to get down here and you want to pair him with his quarterback. And then finally, I actually like this play maybe a little bit more than anything else down here. I don't mind, and I'm perfectly happy going all the way down. This kid's pretty good, and he's kicking Ryan Williams off the field a little bit. He's rotating with Ryan Williams. Lottie Brooks has come on strong. He hasn't found the box, but if he can find the box, which he very well could in this spot, Alabama's not going to run the football on Oklahoma. We guarantee that. So if I'm punting and going full punt play, I think Lottie Brooks finds the end zone this week. 5,300, very fair. I'm perfectly content to go down here to Lottie Brooks and take a full-blown punt on him. All right. Stacks that I like. So it will be, I don't mind. This would be my preferred way to do it. If you want to double it, I don't hate it. Go right ahead. I'm fine with that. You can go Arch here. You can play around with it. But I would prefer that, which you can do it with Jordan Marshall as well. You could definitely be able to do that because you could go 15. Yeah, you can make that work. So yeah, so that's where I don't mind. This is my preferred way to do it. Then that would get me a little more salary relief. So that would be my first one. Second stack. I mean, we'll just go in order. Mendoza Cooper is in play. I don't love that. That's probably a maybe. I'd throw that in if I have room. Carr, I would prefer with Fields. Now, if I wanted to double it, I prefer Faison to Pauling. Pauling is definitely third in the pecking order for me. So I will have some of this. Pitt is going to have to get that's just me buying into you're not going to see that Jeremiah Love's not going to get loose. So, but that's my preferred way to play it. So I do like that one a good bit. I will have plenty of exposure there. Let's see. OU Bama, Ty Simpson. If I'm playing Simpson, I don't mind it with just Lottie Brooks, but personally, I'm going to want it to be Simpson, Brooks, Bernard. I want the trio because, like I said, they're going to have to chuck it, and you're probably looking at needing 300 yards in this spot. If he's going to get there, he's going to need 300 plus and multiple scores. So I'm going to bank that it's going to need to be 2. Simpson, I think I really only want to play double stacked because Bernard's not a dominant enough target in that offense to play single. So I'm going to play Brooks, Bernard, and Simpson, and then I'll play around with it after that, which I'm sure there's some great ways to be able to play this through. Let's go Marshall. We can go Moulton. And then, yeah, now you got 9,700 average. So you can get Dampier and something. You can get Dampier's fine playing naked. Green's fine playing naked. Marcel Reed's fine playing naked. Which you're not, yeah, you're 600 short. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. So, yeah, I mean, you're 600 short in that spot, but you can play Sayin. shoot, you could play Arch naked and have 10-4, which doesn't get me where I would want to be. But still, there's some ways to play around with it. You can play around with the backs and get another single stack in there. You could say, hey, I really don't want to play this, and I really want to play him and Marcel Reed and Craver. And then I've got 8,100. So I could say, well, I'm going to play Molten, and that's going to leave me with 8,900. I'm perfectly happy playing that whatsoever. So this is something I would play, no doubt about it. So I don't mind playing Mike Wash there. It's no problem. So whatever you got to do to make it work is fine. You can also pay down at running back. You could say, hey, I need the extra 500. And pay down and go 6,800 or less. Maybe you want to buy Caden Durham. Me personally, I'd just pay down and get Harlem Berry there, play him with Marshall, call it a day. I think Marshall's the best play, so I probably prefer the Marshall side of that, but it's in play, no doubt about it. Miami, I have no issues playing Beck, and I'm going to play him with Tony. I'm probably going to play him single stacked with Daniels back, because I don't trust Daniels. I'm not playing Trader. If I was going to double it, it would be with Marion, but I don't trust the volume from Marion. In this case, you're hoping Beck finds Tony twice. Beck finds maybe a running back for a touchdown, a tight end for a touchdown, and Daniels for a touchdown. You get 5 tuds. So I'm happy with that as a stack as well. I don't mind Beck single. I think you could go double, but I don't love it. I'm not going to play Bayron in this spot. If you really want to get freaky, you can play the Chandler Morris, Trell Harris combo. I don't mind that. I would play that as a single. Morris has been terrible, but that's like you're playing a lot of entries if you want to play that sucker. I do like the Dampier. I'm fine Dampier naked. I'm fine Dampier with Davis. And I'm also fine Dampier with Bentley if you need to fit something in on the back end. But I do like Dampier as a stack option because that defense is not particularly good. And I like Dampier alone by himself. Chambliss, I'm playing naked. I refuse to play a single Ole Miss wide receiver. I just will not do it. I'm telling you, I do have a Harrison Wallace Chambliss stack. I will be honest. And it was the first lineup I built, which is hilarious. But it just so happened to be a team where Wallace was he fit. I had 6,200 left, and it just so happened to be like exactly what I had. That's the only reason that I played it. Not saying that I would only play it if it just happened to fit perfectly, which it did. I had to make a decision at 6,200, so I made the decision to play it because what I played was I wanted Malachi Tony here. So I put this rest of the team together. I played Tony, Manning, Wingo, Moulton, Marshall, and Chambliss. That left me 6,300. I hated all the options down here. Like, I didn't want Anthony, Sharp, Hagans. No. Horton, no. He gets rotated out too much. So, like, the options were Marion, who I already had his other partner. And then I could drop down to Terrence Carter. But I don't know that there's too much. Like, there's more floor for Carter, but the ceiling's just so much better for Wallace. So, from a tournament perspective, yes, I will play Wallace in that particular spot. I do not advise playing Harrison Wallace just because you want to play Harrison Wallace. That would be ridiculous. If I'm playing Sayin, which I will, I am playing him with Jeremiah alone, and that is it. I do not trust you, Tarnell Tate, anymore. He'll probably burn me this week. Maybe I'll have one, but I'm probably not. He's just so cost prohibitive. And then obviously I will play. Hang on. Let's see here. I have no issues playing Gunner if you want. He's only stackable with Zach Branch. And then on the Arch side, pick your favorite 2 of 3 of this. So Wingo, Mosley, Moore. Mosley's playing a lot more. It's taking Parker Livingstone off the field. Mosley's playing much better. I don't mind that. I prefer Wingo the best. He's definitely going to get the most targets. More perfectly happy with. Um, but you don't have to double arch. You can single arch. You can double arch. And then, so I'm just going to play around with it. And whatever I have salary for is what I'm going to play. But Wingo is my preferred option in that spot. So all good there. Let's see. I will, let's see here. I'm just going to quickly, oops, hang on. I'm going to quickly do this because everybody always asks for it. So, let's see here. Okay. I will show y'all my Friday night DK lineup just because everybody always asks for it. So I'll give it to you. So I think there's a couple ways to go with this. You do not have to play double quarterback. I'll explain this bottom portion in a second. So I like this Clemson Louisville game the most from a scoring perspective. My want plays, so you have to break them down into wants and needs, or wants and good morning, JB. So I'm gonna tell y'all this is the 4 that I wanted, and I'm not getting off of is Klubnik, Brown, Bell, and Williams. That's where I'm not getting off of. So those 4 is what I was building from. That's where I suggest you start at. You can either play Dante Moore or Miller Moss if you want to play a super flex quarterback. I think that's fine. I don't think you have to, but I don't think you need to. Or you don't. You could not, whatever. If you want, you could play Whittington and Davison and get different. I kind of like that. But I kind of do like this. I just don't know that I'm going to get there. I don't know. I debated it. I've debated it. I think Moore and Sadiq are out. That's going to leave us. I don't love Colin Lacey personally in this spot. I like TJ Moore. I like Tristan Smith. I probably lean Smith over Moore. McClellan's probably going to be the wide receiver 1 for Oregon. So I don't hate that. I'm not a Malik Benson fan, so I refuse to play him. If I was going to play somebody different, it would be Jamari Johnson, the tight end who's taken over for Sadiq while he's banged up. Gary Bryant Jr. is probably out. Olsen Pat Henry's a fun little differentiator here as somebody that you could play with Klubnik. And then Tracy and Lameek Brockington. Javon Tracy, I am a fan of his overall game, but he's been outplayed by Brockington. I prefer Brockington if I was going to go anywhere. They are the clear 1 and 2. They play the most snaps for Minnesota. We don't know if Darius Taylor is going to play or not. So that is a big deal. If Darius Taylor plays, I think he can go there because he has good pass catching upside, but it is supposed to rain there, which is somewhat nervy for me. I don't hate if you went Darius Taylor in this team, maybe you go TJ Moore, right? So you get your double, and then you got some run game in that rainy game. So I don't hate this as a team. It's fine, and it's based on something. I prefer Whittington as my favorite play. I think they trust him the most, but that's not to say you could easily get burned because Davison and De'Aaron Hill are going to get touches. So it's a very nervy situation. I did want to get the 2 Oregon running backs, but I just couldn't quite get there. So the reason why I have Brockington here is because, and I don't have more. So there's a reason. I've got Smith. I prefer Smith to Moore. So I have this team with 300 left over. The reason I have the 300 left over, not just because this is what I want to play, but it gives me a little bit of flexibility. If Darius Taylor is out, I'm going to go from Brockington to Ejeboy. So that is the swap. That's kind of what I'm looking at. And depending how it goes out, because I have so much exposure to this early game, Miller Moss has a freaking rushing touchdown in like 5 of 6, which is insane. I don't expect that to continue. I do expect Chris Bell to bounce back. I'm hoping his ownership's lower because he's had 3 stinkers in a row, and I think we could easily get a 37-point game out of him here. So I'm going to buy the upside. That's just me buying it. I just prefer that. So I'm going to prefer the big boys in this spot. I want a Klubnik double, and then I want the triple. I'm hoping this Clemson Louisville game shoots out, and then I get the decision on the back end. Do I want Edgeboy if Taylor's out, or do I want Brockington and play for Whittington and them to get ahead? If I think I'm not ahead, or if Taylor's in, I can go Taylor and Davison. So like I have swaps galore on that back end once we get an hour and a half into that game. Now, granted, the game's not going to be over, but I do have options, which is why I like it. So if the game starts out and Bell starts out with a monster game, and let's say he's low owned, then or low owned by comparison for a 2-game slate, like Bell should be 90% owned in this spot. If Bell comes in at 80% or 50% or lower, probably, or 60% even or lower, I'm probably not going to swap. Or if Taylor's active, maybe I do just to get different. I go Davison and Taylor because all the red zone work does go through Jordan Davison. Maybe he falls in the end zone 3 times. And if Taylor's active, I might that might be the swap. So that's kind of where I'm at on that Friday night slate. I think it's a fun way to play it. I think that's your options. I'm sticking with the Brockington side for the time being, and it might be 7:55 when I decide to make that switch because I want to get as much information on this. What is the combinatorial ownership of Moss, Klubnik, Brown, Bell, and Williams and Smith in this spot? If they are all north of 50% owned, I'm going to try to figure out what the lowest combinatorial ownership is, which I think the Whittington's going to be the more popular of the bunch. So I might, if Taylor's in, I might switch to the Taylor team. Because of that Q mark, I think his ownership goes way down. You know what you could see is a lot of people play Lacey instead. And they have builds with Taylor. They just go Lacey. But I think a lot of people are going to get caught out in this spot. Maybe we get lucky. Maybe a lot of people play Dante Moore. Actually, I think the Moore way is how people are probably going to end up playing this. Is they're probably going to play the Davison Moore way a little bit more. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. I think people might play Randall, might play Davison, might play with Duke Watson. All viable pivots if you really wanted to get freaky. That's just not really where I'm not super interested in those. So, all right. I will see you guys tomorrow morning for Live Before Lock at should be 9 o'clock. I gotta take my wife to the dealership first, but I'm gonna finish building. I've got my pairs built for all my big stuff. I'm gonna try to get my Fanduel stuff built tonight, and that way I have it done. And so I can just build out my DK stuff tomorrow, which is kind of evolving at the moment. Kind of getting comfortable with where I want to be on that. So, all right, y'all, good luck tonight. Enjoy the games tonight. Actually, 2 good games. Maybe Minnesota can keep this thing close. We shall see. So good luck. I will see you guys in the morning, and we will have all the new